So in the fast-paced world of Formula E, as we've come to know and love it, could it actually now be under threat from a new contender on the horizon? Of course, I'm talking about hydrogen, the most abundant element in the universe and potentially the newest source of fuel. With companies like BMW and Toyota now heavily investing in hydrogen fuel cells, this could be the new technology that revolutionises how we power our vehicles and potentially how we race them. So with the ability to refuel in minutes and a potential longer range than that of battery electric vehicles, could this really spell the end for the Formula E series, in the fact that you'll have a fuel cell that's far more abundant and actually could provide a far better spectacle in terms of racing, in the fact that you would be able to go for longer ranges and you would then be able to not concern ourselves as much with the peloton style of racing that we've come to see recently in trying to maximize efficiency. So ultimately, what does this mean for Formula E? Well, we already know with the Gen 4 era coming that contracts have already been put in place for various battery manufacturers. So it doesn't look like we're going to transition away from battery electric over to hydrogen within the next few years. However, the potential for a Gen 5 or potentially even maybe a Gen 4.5 would be quite an interesting prospect in terms of bringing in this new technology, certainly if it's going to make itself mainstream on the consumer market. Let's not forget, major automotive players like Honda and Isuzu are already developing this technology for long-range commercial vehicles. And they really see hydrogen as the next zero-emission fuel cell. So could this be the end of Formula E? Well, potentially as we know it now. I don't think there's going to be a massive shift away from what the DNA of Formula E actually is, which is to take racing to the city streets of major metropolitan areas. And if you can do it with a different fuel source, say hydrogen, I don't really think that's going to make much of a difference to how Formula E operates. It may shift away from a battery electric only series towards a more alternative fuel source, but again, this might be of benefit as it might actually entice other manufacturers into the sport. Or it may not, but ultimately, I don't see it going away anytime soon. So the future is unwritten. Imagine if you said to someone 10, 15 years ago you're going to see electric cars drive around city street circuits at crazy speeds. They'd probably think you were pretty crazy. So it just goes to show innovation does play a big deal in Formula E. And ultimately, it's going to come to a crossroads with hydrogen. As more manufacturers seem to turn to this alternative fuel, Formula E is going to find itself in a position where it has to make a choice of how it tackles this emerging technology. And ultimately, the companies that participate in Formula E will also have to look inwardly and decide how they wish to change going forward. Or not, it may be a case of battery electric stays the mainstay for racing and hydrogen becomes the technology used in road going vehicles. We just don't know. Ultimately, though, we do know it's coming, and Formula E is going to have a head off with hydrogen technology. If you haven't already, please like and subscribe the video. So it'll be interesting to see over the next few months and years as to whether or not this technology does in fact become part of the mainstream. And I think that's going to be the telltale as to whether or not Formula E needs to reconsider how it goes about its racing technology. Ultimately, all we do know so far is we've got Gen 3 to finish. Gen 4 is coming in the guise that we've already seen it, with new battery suppliers, new aero packages and things of that nature. But ultimately, we just need to be prepared that the sport could be changing in the next decade. Let's not forget, Formula 1, for example, has embraced the hybrid technology and working with synthetic fuel blends. So it's no different to other race series in the fact that something's changing in the wider world and the sport has to adapt to it. And I think this is going to be the same case for Formula E going forward. Realistically, we'll have to see how hydrogen plays out on the consumer market, but potentially it could mean that Formula E has to look at itself and decide whether or not what route it wants to go down, and ultimately, is there going to be manufacturer support for it? Only time will tell.